Gekishin Squadra half anniversary is only a few days away, and we have some major announcements coming tomorrow. And I do want to talk about my final, I guess, concept for the half anniversary first character, because I think, at least to me, it just feels like a Gogeta is coming. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest, y'all. Gogeta's on the thumbnail. I do think that he is going to be the half anniversary character, but it could be many other options. I mean, Gekishin is still only a few months into its lifespan. However, I would expect the first hero to be a sane character because, one, I mean, a lot of us know how these Dragon Ball games work already, but two, March 18th is actually Saiyan Day. So with it being Saiyan Day specifically, I think they're going to introduce some really exciting hype Saiyan character into the game. I feel like Gogeta just makes a lot of sense for like a half anniversary pick character. It is interesting that they released Vegito for season 3 and not season 4 though. So I mean, maybe they don't want to do two fusions a season back to back, but who knows? Either way, I'll be talking about what I want to see from Gogeta, but really quick here, I do want to confirm that Squadra Blast NA is where we're going to see the hero confirmed, at least this official live stream right here. So this stream does start in about 27 hours. It'll be closer to 26 hours by the time that this video is actually up, but it is tomorrow basically, and it is a very exciting. During this we'll be seeing, I believe, the top 4 finalists for Squadra Blast. Now I am enrolled for Squadra Blast here, so whether or not I get top 4, I mean, we'll see. And even if I don't, I'll go live on Twitch anyways after like my runs, and I'll kind of just react to everything ongoing regarding it. But yeah, no, I'm very excited to see what exactly is going to happen here, and you know, what stats are going to be here and things like that. But they will reveal the new hero in a special video, so that's going to be really cool. I mean, they showed this right here. I think it's pretty much just going to be this teaser video, and then at the end, after this ends, I assume that they're going to actually show us like here, like somewhere here was like Bojack's legendary intro, for example. Like, I assume we would end up seeing the hero after this, essentially, right? So that's going to be really cool. And then we also have the Squadra talk, which is a few hours after, so that's going to be also exciting, and we're going to see full details there about like what exactly the season is going to look like, what changes they're going to make to any bosses or maps or divine cards potentially. Well, not really divine cards, they don't really announce that in the stream, but hopefully they give us a ton of information for half anniversary. That would be very exciting. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about my Super Gogeta concept for half anniversary. And again, I think that they're gonna make this guy pretty good. I do imagine him to be a DPS role character, and if I'm wrong about Super Gogeta, hey, you know, my hands are up in the air. We'll be able to see what the new hero will be after, and they usually do give the actual like kit details to creators pretty soon after, so I mean, we'll figure everything out regarding that. So Super Gogeta, the Supreme Fusion right here, Merged Warrior, dive into battle and then relentlessly wipe enemies up close, or not wipe, attack enemies up close with divine pressure or incredible pressure. Dude, I can't even speak it, apparently. I'm just so excited, chat. Use Soul Punisher to wipe out enemies and bosses, then restore cooldown. So my idea for this guy is kind of to be, again, diving in battles, picking off a character, then also having the ability to boss secure. So he's not necessarily a character that's going to be like extremely influential in team fights, but he'll be very good at picking a character out and just bullying that character. But also he's going to be really good at making sure you do have it secure, because I mean, if we really look at like the meta picks right now, obviously bosses are not like, bosses are very important still, but you do most of the time take a team fight right before bosses. And in terms of boss secure and the top tier characters, I feel like it's pretty much just Oob and Daima. Kefla, Super Vegito don't really have a secure. I mean, Broly has like a semi-secure-ish. Piccolo is still good, and so is Goku, but I feel like they're not like, you know, top echelon, you know, kind of like major tiers. The Broly's closer to those two than he is to like Kefla, I feel like, but you guys kind of get the point, where I feel like having another secure character could still be good in general, right? And kind of differentiate from the recent releases where we've been getting mostly just like these AoE team fight characters. Even though this guy will obviously still be good in team fights, I think that kind of making him fill a different role rather than your typical bruiser could be a good idea. But that's just me. So his passive skill, the Radiant Fusion Merge Warrior. So what I am giving this guy is when an enemy enters his field of vision, he will get an increased movement speed when he's facing the enemy specifically. So not when he's trying to run away from the enemy, it'll give him movement speed to allow him to chase an enemy down. Then he applies Steal Life to rush attacks and skills. Now, some of you guys may not know what Steal Life is. That is actually the baby ability, and I think it kind of makes sense for Gogeta to have this. One, to give himself a little bit of a sustain as like a kind of bruiser character, but secondly, I'm thinking of like, you know, his purification, and it's like, okay, he's like purifying the enemy in terms of like stealing their HP and then restoring his own HP on his rush attacks and skills, which, you know, will allow him to stay a little bit more in a fight, and again does incentivize team fighting, because by team fighting he will be able to consistently continue to heal himself a little bit, which would be nice. Now, additionally, he will increase damage to the first enemy targeted by a skill within an interaction. So let's say, you know, you're in a 2v2. Okay, the first enemy that he targets with his skills will actually receive increased damage within that interaction, and that way it'll allow him to kind of pressure that specific enemy. Then if a nearby ally is at KO, I kind of took that from Bicon, his passive skill will also be activated against the closest enemy as well. So again, whatever nearby enemy will essentially also be getting the additional damage increase, and you know, he will of course still have the Steal Life, etc. So that'll essentially allow him to just do extra damage to more enemies that are around him. Maybe you could change, I was thinking like maybe I should change this up to like allowing him to gain vision on the closest enemy nearby. I think that could also be a good idea, or whoever kills, kind of like Namagoku, you get vision, but one of those would be fine. So rush attack here, just a physical attack, and then the third attack is a powered up strike. Nothing really too special needed here. We'll come back to this powered up strike in a bit in terms of this concept, but this is Gogeta's passive just in general, again allowing him to kind of target on one enemy specifically. So skill 1 is the Soul Strike. This is his kicks that he does to Janemba before he does the Soul Punisher. Dash towards a targeted enemy and deliver a strike. The skill can be reactivated immediately after use, very similar to Gamma's skill 1. Then if the third hit does land, additional damage will be dealt and will stagger the enemy, which, you know, will just be kind of nice. That's a little bit similar to, I guess, Gotenks in a sense, where, you know, Gotenks does this combo, then staggers the enemy at the end. This third hit lands, you're able to stagger the enemy. You do need to make sure you're aiming properly, but if you're able to aim properly, and get the stagger off, that can be super impactful in a team fight situation and allow you to finish an enemy off if you're just like consistently targeting them over and over. You could also theoretically target another enemy while you're using the skill, which would be good. But yeah, 7-second cooldown, nothing really too crazy. This will just allow him to do a good amount of damage. I think I actually kind of like the Gamma skill 1, and this could be used to set up other situations, even just as a DPS, which is really nice. Next we have the Punisher Drive. So this is again Gogeta just like warping towards the enemy, doing a bunch of those punches. So this right here, swiftly warp towards a targeted enemy with your fury of blows and then apply strike defense down. So when it comes to this, the idea is, again, you could warp over walls still and things like that, but obviously it's just him kind of, I guess he like disappears into like just nothingness and then appears behind Janemba. So this will also apply strike defense down. This guy is a strike kind of based character with skill 2 and skill 1 both being strike based. Then of course he does have his passive skill as well, which does, well, not necessarily his passive skill, but also his rush attacks, which are physical attacks, right? So again, this would just be good. It would be his kind of movement option to chase enemies down and keep them from escaping. Very similar to what Vegito has in his skill too. But yeah. The next we have skill 3, Just Give Up. I named it this. This is pretty funny. So he will assume a stance, very much like Topo, and unleash an avoidable energy wave against nearby enemies who actually attack him during it. again, just like Topo as well, he'll gain extra HP, no obstruction, and defense up whilst in this stance specifically. Now, unlike Topo, again, he doesn't have only specifically energy defense up, and whilst he would get defense up here, it won't be necessarily as high as Topo's soul energy defense up. But again, this is just a counter. It makes sense. I expect Gogeta to have a counter like this. It would make a lot of sense. Maybe it could be specifically when he strike defense up is what they might give him, and like a counter kind of like this. But I feel like Gogeta having a counter like this makes a lot of sense. Maybe when this counter lands, it staggers the enemy for a bit and then knocks him back if you choose to do so. But a 12-second cooldown on a counter, I think seems fair to me. But yeah, just give up. that could be a really good name for it. Now finally, we have the Soul Punisher here. So releases an explosive energy sphere in a set direction, which deals increased damage to enemies or bosses who would be under 50% HP. Again, this is supposed to be the skill you use to finish off enemies, and everything kind of is intended to set up the Soul Punisher. So again, we have the skill 2, which could dive down on enemies. Then you have the skill 1 after, which you could use right away. Then stagger the enemy with the last hit. Then if you choose to do so in team fights, you could use your Soul Punisher, which would hit, you know, a set direction of like area. And especially since at that point you might have the enemies under 50% HP, you would gain this here. When an enemy is defeated or when a boss is defeated, all of his skills would also be able to be reactivated. So this could be useful in situations where, again, you throw this out, secure boss, and then there's a few enemies around you and you kind of want to take them out. You will have all your skills back. So this will be very helpful in helping you melt down boss and helping you get the final confirmation kill on the boss by them being under 50% HP. He'll do extra damage to them and just kind of finish enemies off. This can be super useful, again, in team fights where everyone is grouped up together. Again, imagine like a Bardock Wrath and then you use this after. That could be really nasty. Things like that. So, I mean, Gogeta just an all-around, you know, gonna be tanky, chasing you down. More so ideal in, like, I feel like picking an enemy off, like I said, in 1v1 situations. That's kind of what I would like to see from a Gogeta right now, because we have a lot of heroes that are really good at like covering area and covering a wide range and hitting multiple enemies at once, such as Kefla, Super Vegito, and Broly. Super Vegito and Broly are both bruisers that kind of are just like, you know, forefronting it, and Gogeta could still do that. Of course, like, it's not like you wouldn't be able to do something like that, but I think this would kind of feel a different play style and just make things feel a little bit fresh. It would be a little bit difficult to kind of wipe him out instantly because he has this steal life effect, which will allow him to, again, recover HP based off of the damage he deals. So again, the more damage and the more successful you are at dealing that damage that he ends up doing, he will actually recover more and more HP. Just like Baby, this actually, again, does scale off of the damage that you would do. So do keep that in mind. At least that's how I believe it does work. And yeah, again, maybe one or two changes could be done here, but this is my first time doing a Gekishin concept. It's actually a bit, I wouldn't even say a bit, way more simple than doing a Dokkan battle concept, which, you know, again, these Dokkan passives are super large, but now for Gekishin, I don't know, I feel like it's still very simple at the end of the day. Obviously, there's like a lot of descriptions here for like a character like Vegito, but then we could take a look at like a character like Kefla, for example, and she's pretty straightforward for the most part. Like, she's based around vanishing and things like that. So, I mean, we'll see what a Super Gogeta would end up doing in terms of official media, but I would assume like this ability and this ability would be in there, and then Soul Punisher would 100% be the ultimate. Like, if they do release a Super Gogeta, I think that just makes tons of sense. But anyways, this is fun to record here. Again, we'll see what is going on in about 30 hours from now. Appreciate y'all for watching, and we'll just catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.